Hello everyone and welcome back to Art a la Carte. In this episode I'm going to show you how to draw a really easy sunflower. The technique I'm going to show you to draw this sunflower is really super easy, but as you'll see later on in this video, you can really use this technique, and with a little extra time and effort put into it can really make something super pretty. So for the sunflower base itself, I'm just going to use just a circle for kind of the face of the sunflower. And then around the actual blossom, I'm going to put the petals, and the petals are kind of start off a little bit narrow and then just kind of loop out and around about this shape. Now, to make sure that I keep my petals the same size all the way around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of measure this out, and I'm going to make another circle kind of coming out that keeps the same distance all the way around. But I'm going to draw this one really lightly. You're going to draw it really, really lightly because you're going to end up erasing that part. And this will help you so that your sunflowers aren't really long on this side and really short on this side. It'll just kind of help you out. Now the first layer of petals, you're just going to put them side by side and not worry about any overlapping. But you're going to keep that same shape. Really skinny at the bottom and then have it just loop out around. And you can put a little bit of variance in your petals. They don't have to all, be exactly the same thickness. You want them to be similar, but not mirror images. And it's going to give a little bit more sense of realism. As you go out and around the circle, you're going to change that direction. So you're not going to have them all kind of pointing up. As they come out, they're going to go out the direction that they're facing. You want to make sure that you're not making them fatter. So if you start to see, oh, I'm getting a little bit fatter, start narrowing that down a little bit. Try to keep them the same thickness. You don't want to have, starting off thin and get thicker, 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 and you're having this ginormous, huge. You want to try to keep them, remember, similar. Sometimes it helps if you draw some petals out around the edges that are, are the same. That way you'll have a little bit more of a guide reference as to how big you want them to be. So once you've gone around and you have your first set of petals all done, you just double check them, make sure that they're all looking fairly symmetrical. And this will be your first layer of sunflowers. And then you're going to go back around behind there and you're going to put your second layer of petals, and you're going to use your overlapping. So you're going to kind of imagine the petal coming up behind and just draw what's poking out. So just like that. This technique also works really great with daisies and other, small petaled flowers that have lots of petals but kind of overlapping a little bit there. If you were going to do this as a daisy, you might have the center of the flower just be a little bit smaller in comparison to the size of the flowers, but you could definitely make this into an easy daisy. And depending on the kind of sunflower you have, these petals could actually be a little bit bigger as well. The one I'm doing from my parents' yard had these really just kind of nice, fine little, thin little petals that went around, but you could definitely make them a little bit thicker if you wanted to. Now, for the center, depending on how you want to finish this up, if you want to just keep this a pencil drawing, I'll show you how to do that. But if you were doing this as a painting, I wouldn't put any texture or anything in here, and you would do that when you would add your paint to that. But since this is a pencil drawing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make just a very rough circle in the center, and I'm going to create that by just making some very shallow dots. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow that pattern all the way around. I'm going to have it a little bit darker as I get into the center. So as I'm going around here, I'm just making these dots not super tight together. So what I'm doing is creating a texture with the tip of my pencil. What you don't want to do is just kind of take your pencil and just, you want to actually, be looking at the spacing between here and really kind of put the dots in with a purpose. They're not just randomly thrown in there. I'm making this this texture, and the closer I put the dots together, the darker the texture is going to be, and the more it's going to push this back. So this one here is going to be fairly the same distance between all the dots. I'm not trying to get anything a little bit too dark. Once I have that first edge, then I'm going to go into my center. And now this one, I'm going to go in, and you'll notice I'm going to put more dots than there are white spaces. And I'm moving my pencil a little bit more, so they're not as much dots as they are smudges. So I'm putting my pencil down and just moving it slightly instead of just touch and pull. I'm putting it down, moving it slightly. It takes a little bit of practice, but after you get this motion down, you'll find it's great for shading with a texture. Once I have my texture put in there, I'm going to just very lightly with my pencil now go around the outer edge of the sunflower and just very softly move my pencil around to create a little bit of a shadow. Not too much, just very lightly. And a little bit in the center, kind of blending out. I don't want to cover up my texture, but I just want to kind of blend some of this together just a little bit. And as you play with it, you'll find that perfect pressure for your pencil. That's not going to cover up all that work you did, but it's going to create a really nice shading and tone to the paper. And again, this is something that the more time you spend with this, the better it's going to look. So don't be afraid to put in the time if you want a really nice looking flower. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an eraser and I'm going to go through here. I'm just going to clean up a little bit of these lines before I start adding in my shadowing. Once you have it cleaned up a little bit, you can kind of darken any of the lines that kind of got erased in that process. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to apply some shading. I'm going to apply it to the petals that are overlapped. So a little bit underneath there. I'm going to push those back just a little bit. I don't want them to be super dark. I don't want them to be, so dark that they just kind of blend into this part here. Just enough to kind of push them back just a little bit. And once I have those kind of pushed back, I'm going to add a little bit of shading right in the center of the petal folds. So I'm just going to brush my pencil up just in the center, and what that's going to do is create a kind of a folded look to the petal. So it looks like these petals are kind of wrapping around towards the front. And again, just using really light pressure and a kind of a flicking motion. And then if you have a blending stick like this, you can just use that if you want to, if there's a couple lines that are maybe a little bit harsher, just to kind of blend a little bit of that shade away. I don't want to blend those lines out too much because they kind of give that texture that I really, really want. But if there's a harsh one like right here, I might just take my blending stick and just kind of work that lead out just a little bit. So then it just comes back to the part of refining it and using now your darkest darks to create those shadows. And you don't want to overdo this. Just want to find those areas that you really can just touch in a little bit of dark color to really push back some things and add a little bit of texture. So I'm not going to run a line around there of darkest darks. You just really want to control it. Your darkest darks and your lightest lights are like your biggest resources, and you don't want to use them too much because they don't kind of overdo the picture. But you don't want to forget about them totally because it kind of makes your, if you don't use them, it just kind of blurs your picture out a little bit. You can just find those areas where you can put those really touches of darks. You're just going to notice that difference in your picture, especially when you start using them just the right places. And that just comes with instinct, and instinct comes with practice. So the more you practice this out, the more you're going to find, oh, okay, I know where those darks need to go to make this just really kind of pop out here. Putting that extra time into your drawing is really what's going to take it from being just a kind of a cool looking drawing to being something really extra special. A lot of beginning artists just really don't realize how close they are to going from just kind of a mediocre picture to going to a wow pizzow picture. And it just takes those extra few, I was gonna say minutes, but sometimes it could be hours of just that tiny little itty bitty details to really take that picture to the next level. And a lot of artists want to achieve, you know, that next level of art, but they don't realize how close they are, and they give up, you know, when they're just so close. And that's something that I found in probably the last 5 or 6 years of my art career is, you know, for a good majority of my art time, I really was content with just cartoons and illustrations, and I love, you know, cartoons and illustrations. And realism just seemed a little bit too far out there for me. I couldn't quite get it. And then just began to watch artists, especially in time-lapse. I love watching artists in time-lapse because you can see it happen in just, you know, mere minutes. What takes them hours, you can see it in mere minutes. And I would watch them and I would follow and go, yeah, I can do that level, I can do that level, I can do that level. And then all of a sudden it would change to a level that I hadn't yet achieved. And I was, what goes on? What magic do they use to get to that next level? And I would watch and I would find it was just these little tricks in just taking that time to push that, the contrast or the shading or just the attention to detail. Basically the element that I was missing was just the time, because I didn't just think that time was the key. I thought there was some special thing that I wasn't seeing. And that's what's hard, especially if you're a self-taught artist, if you don't have access to, you know, an art teacher or an art class, or maybe you do, but you're just not, you know, connecting with your art teacher. I have a lot of, you know, people who watch this who have that just, they're not, their art teacher and them are not seeing eye to eye, and it's challenging for them. So it can be challenging, and to learn that next step, what it is, what creates that. And I totally get that, because that's how I learned. I just didn't have a lot of access, especially as a student in high school and things like that. I didn't have access to art teachers as other people might have. And so really had to teach myself on my own a lot. And it was challenging. So I'm hoping that these classes here, these video tutorials, give you that encouragement that you need, that maybe you're not getting if you don't have an art teacher, or an art teacher that you're clicking with. Here we go. We have our finished kind of flower. Again, you can continue on adding, you know, more and more detail to this. But one last thing I want to do is just talk quickly about the stem, because obviously sunflowers, they're tall and they need a stem. So let's look at that. So to make my stem, I'm going to find this line fairly centered to the center of this, and I'm going to bring down just a very faint line. I'm going to kind of change this up a little bit. Once I have the line that I like, I'm going to thicken it out. It's not as thick as you would think. I mean, this is a huge flower, and these stems, man, they are amazing at holding things up. What you don't want to do is create it with a ruler. A lot of people, when they want to do these straight lines, they reach in pull out their trusty ruler, use that. Using a ruler is great for architectural or man-made precision, but when you want to go with an organic line, you want to really try to do that yourself. So how do you create a line as straight as possible? First anchor your hand down is one technique, and then moving your fingers can help. Also, anchoring your fingers down and moving your hand can also help you create that straight line depending on what you need. But as you notice, I'm going to create this line. I'm going to have a little bit kind of lumps and bumps with it, just kind of depending on how the sunflower is working there, because I want it to be organic. And then what I'm just going to put in some really fun some leaves in here. So I'm going to come kind of offshoot off of here, and I'm going to put a leaf over here. They're kind of these really kind of cool, kind of teardroppy, hearty shapes. A heart and teardrop got together and made a shape. It would be a sunflower, a petal, or leaf. So there's one, and you can put as many as you want. I'm going to put another one over here. Like that. And then to add a little bit of shade to that, especially as it comes up underneath the sunflower flower itself, I'm going to add a little bit of shading there to push it back. I'm going to use a gradient to kind of pull that down so it's not just that really shocking color. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of textural shading of the actual leaf, the stem, and then a little bit with the leaves. I'm going to use the side of my pencil. I'm just going to kind of pull in some shading in there. Just kind of lay that in there first, and then I can kind of go back and do a little bit more precision work with it. Then I'm going to finish it off by popping in my darkest dark colors right there. And if you want to create the illusion of realism, outlining, if you have anything that's outlined, it automatically takes away some of the realism. So kind of just lighten up your outline a little bit and create that outline using your darks and your lights. So right here on this leaf, I have really good light shine here. So I'm going to have that line erased a little bit. I'm going to create just kind of the leading into it with a shadow. And then I'm just going to let the, I'm going to let the imagination kind of fill in the rest a little bit there. But if you have just a really strong outline around everything, automatically it's going to cartoonify, or it's going to cartoonify it a little bit. And so steer clear of those outlines as much as possible when you're doing a realistic drawing. All right, there we go. So we have our finished sunflower in pencil. I'd like to see what you do with your sunflower. So if you draw a sunflower or paint a sunflower, take a picture of it and post it either to my Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Love to see those, and the links are in the description box below. If you're new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other videos I have. I have new videos coming out 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays, so you don't want to miss out. Thanks again for drawing with me, guys, and until next time, God bless you guys, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.